Hey guys, Prepare Mentality here. I wanted to talk about the recovery after a disaster, post event. I know a lot of times we talk about the preparation and we talk about the mitigation, but it's not always talked about what do we do after a disaster? What do we do post disaster? What do we do for recovery efforts? How do we get back on track to some type of normalcy after a disaster happens or a significant event that disrupts your normal daily life? So I have my notes here, and I want to make sure I stay on track. So I always have my notes available, so I'm not blabbling on about this. But I want it to stay on track. So first thing I have is ensure the safety of yourself and your family. As long as you have accountability of the people you left the disaster zone with, and you're going back with the people that you left with, as long as you have accountability for them, that is a good thing. But you want to check on everybody's safety, especially if you did not evacuate the area. You know, if you're missing somebody, or if somebody has been lost for a certain period of time, um, or something has happened while the event is going on, you want to make sure that recovery efforts are aware, that first responders are aware of what's going on, and make sure that that person arrives back to you safely. Um, you want to avoid any damaged areas. You want to avoid flooding. You want to avoid roads that may be blocked by power lines and or trees. And, and this is all before you go back to the damaged area and or the areas around your zone or area. Uh, because when you are in a significant event like this, sometimes you do evacuate, sometimes you don't evacuate. So for people who did evacuate, you want to make sure that the area that you're going back to is safe and it's cleared for you to come back by first responders or the proper authorities that are clearing the area. If you're already in the disaster area and you didn't leave, you also want to make sure that the area outside of your home is cleared, that your community or the roads and streets that you live on are cleared before you go out there messing with damaged areas, and making sure that your house is safe and not compromised during this time frame. But my recommendation when something major like this happens, you want to follow evacuation orders. I know evacuating your home, evacuating your property is a major deal, right? And when we talk about bugging out, this is a form of bugging out. Many people may not have bug out locations, right? I don't like the term bug out, but it references what many people can ideally think about when leaving their home. It's a secondary location, location B, if your home is compromised. That's what bugging out is. And in these situations, a lot of homes were flooded, a lot of homes were damaged, a lot of roofs collapsed, a lot of walls collapsed. So in these scenarios, you want to make sure that you are as safe and your family is as safe as possible. So in this scenario, I would have bugged out if I lived in these counties or these states that could possibly have significant damage to my house. I'd rather be in a parking lot in a car with my family, dry and safe, than be on my house and I know it may be compromised by flooding or debris or just a hazard in general for myself and my family. But those are decisions that you will have to make. And that's why we prepare, right? That's why we prepare to mitigate for these types of events. But since we're talking about post disaster, uh, again, you want to make sure that the area that you're going back to is safe and secure for you and your family to return. So when you return back to your home or your property, you want to make sure you assess the damage. Now, this goes into inspecting your home for visible damage, broken windows, roofs, if your roofs are leaking or if it's damaged, uh, flooding in and around your home, walls, making sure the walls are good, doors, uh, broken glass, even furniture. Furniture can do damage, especially if water is lifting it up and putting it in different areas of the house. And another thing that happens is a lot of mold may occur from flooding and water damage. Uh, but you want to take photos of all of this damage for insurance purposes. If you have homeowners insurance, which you should have, if you have secondary flood and hurricane insurance, not everybody has that. But if you do, you want to make sure that you take pictures and you take good notes of what is damaged so you can get financially back on your feet. So you can document everything as much as possible, right? And again, contacting your insurance company, calling your insurance company uh, to make sure that they have all of the reports of your damaged home, and start the claims process right away. Now, I know communications may be offline. Again, there's 2 to 3,000 people who don't have communications, who are not able to use cell phones or not able to go online. Um, the best thing to do sometimes, you have recovery services there or you have first responders there that will let the community utilize their communication systems that are set aside specifically for disasters and events like this. So if you can find a location like that in your area, that's great. uh, Secondary, if you don't have that, try to find an area outside of the disaster zone that may have power, right? So you can go online, so you can make phone calls and things of that nature, so you can reach particular insurance companies or organizations that may help you, and you can provide them with the necessary notes that you have. Uh, and this goes into long-term repairs, right? Um, of course, you want to make temporary repairs to prevent further damage because there may be a storm coming after the major storm. So there still could be broken windows. There could be roofs that are leaking or that have holes, right? And that's all going into recovery efforts that may be provided within your local town or county, right? Sometimes you'll get volunteer organizations that come down there that help out with some of these repairs, temporary repairs. You have the fire department or the sheriff's office that will help with temporary repairs. Um, Sometimes you'll have FEMA down there, you know, uh, that is a whole nother issue. Sometimes you'll have the Red Cross down there. Um, you may or may not. It all depends how fast they can get the government system working for the citizens, right? But if FEMA should come, if the Red Cross should come, or these government uh, assistant uh, departments may get down there, you want to apply for disaster assistance relief. If you are eligible, you should be eligible. If you have damage to your home, flooding, natural disaster, um, you want to apply for these assistant relief programs. That's what they are for, right? Because this is a hard time. It's a stressful time, especially if you have significant damage. You have to figure out what you are going to do. And the more assistance you have to recover from this, the better you will be and the faster you will get to normalcy. And again, the cleanup process is taunting and it's long. Uh, so when you start to begin cleaning up your home, you're removing damaged furniture, and removing belongings. If you can uh, contain some things and save some things, like pictures, and or things that you deem sentimental to you and your family, please do that. I always stress that you should have your documents in a central location, protected, so you can grab it and go. You didn't have to leave your documents. They go wherever you go. That's always a precaution, right? Or any pictures that you may want to have on your person, right? You put your pictures in a folder or on a USB drive or your documents, right? So they're always on you and you don't have to leave your family pictures or your important documents behind in a flood or in a disaster zone, right? That who knows how long it takes for you to get back to. Um, and again, you want to communicate with your community um, when you are planning to recover. Um, Reconnect with your community, and you can also access mental health support. Right? Again, this is not talked about a lot. When we go through these types of disasters, especially during recovery, you want the support for your mental health because it's a lot to take on when you lose everything, especially you lose your house. And then, especially if you work in that community or you work in the state and the whole state is in a state of emergency, you lose your job. Who knows how long the business will be closed or if they need to recover themselves. That's where assistance comes in, right? So it's a stressful time. How are you going to pay for food? How are you going to pay for gas if you have a vehicle? Clothing, emergency needs, right? Emergency care. And this goes all into pre planning. We want to think about pre and we also want to think about post. One key thing that I want to mention to you guys is it's not necessarily the storm that becomes dangerous, it's after the storm that becomes dangerous. Because we know most times when the storm is coming, we know how fast it's going, the wind speed, what category it's at, if it's a hurricane or tornado. We know a lot of those notes and notifications that come on, right? We don't necessarily know the recovery part, how long it's going to take for power to come back on, right? Because with power comes our normalcy, electronics, communication systems, hygiene, water from the faucet, taking a shower, flushing the toilet, right? For water pumps, uh, making sure that you have light, right? So that's electricity, and then that's just a part of normalcy, getting back to normal. Um, and people aren't ready for when there is no power, when there are no lights, when you need electricity for heating and cooling and cooking food, right? So these things are areas to think about, to plan about, because post disaster is when it gets hard. Pre disaster is easy because everything's normal. We're planning, we're in planning stages, we're getting prepared, we're getting ready. We have all the needs met for the most part. It's after when we don't have the common necessities in our modern day Western society, right? Uh, and that's where the mental part gets to people. That's where the stress comes in, the trauma, the after effects. That's what gets people the most, especially if you're compromised, if you're disabled, or if you're elderly, or if you have kids, if you have pets. All those circumstances come into play when you're thinking about post. What are you going to do post disaster if your house is compromised? People think that they're just going to be hunkering down all the time, which hopefully that's the case and nothing happens to your home or your location or your property and the storm misses you. That's what we want. We want the storm to miss you. We want your home to be covered, right? But sometimes that doesn't happen. You got thousands of people that are in distress, that are trying to figure out how to recover from this storm. And there's going to be more storms coming. It may not have hit your area, but it could affect somebody else. And this is where community comes in. It may not have hit your house, but it may have hit your neighbor's house. So, how are you going to recover? How are we going to recover in a post disaster uh, event? Something to think about. I just wanted to put that out there because it's not talked about enough. You know, I talk a lot about preparedness. Preparedness is my gig. That's what I do, right? Preparedness is what I do. But I wanted to be accountable and talk about what happens after. It gets harder after. And this is in normal circumstances, guys. You know, we have to think about this is not SHTF. This is not an apocalypse, right? Uh, this is not, you know, nationwide power outage. Uh, the resources are still available around these states. We're still able to get help to you. The government is still operational. We can only imagine if those resources are gone, if the government's not operational, if there is no rule of law, if there is no power in the whole United States and the power is out nationwide, if there is no recovery efforts, no one's coming to save you. That's the extreme. But right now, we're talking about in normal conditions. And we have all the resources needed to push efforts and resources and recovery resources to these locations. This is just during normal circumstances. We can look at what happened in, you know, Katrina in Louisiana. That was normal circumstances. The government was still running. We still had resources, but it took time for disaster relief to get there. And it's going to take time again for most disaster relief to get to these locations. For whatever reason it is, for whatever concerns there may be, we still have to look at these plans. Look at your plans, look at your preparations, but also look at post-disaster. What do we do after the fact? But that's it, guys. I hope you guys take notes. I hope you guys share this video with people who may come into these type of circumstances, and I hope it helps somebody out there with post-disaster. But I hope you guys are safe. Hope you guys are healthy. Stay blessed. This is Prepared Mentality.